Welcome to the NancoVerse podcast, where we discuss conversations for a better tomorrow. I'm your host Naman, and I look forward to talking about things that are happening in the world and how they're affecting me, how they're affecting you. Getting to know information is one of the most potent ways to live this life, and I enjoy this process a lot. Speaking into the mic and tuning in with my listeners. How's everyone doing? I'm recording this on Christmas Day at 10 in the night. Christmas is almost over. However, I hope you guys had a good one, and whoever's working even during the Christmas hours. I'd like to share a little small anecdote of a story before I get on to the topics of the day. A few days back, I was in the Delhi metro, and there was a man on his phone shouting at a person that he was speaking to. He was an older man, slightly fat. He had very thick sideburns and a fat mustache. He was on the phone with his wireless earphones on, and he was quite charged and animated while he was talking to this person on the phone. And he kept repeating that I am giving you the orders, so please go do this job. And he was very concerned about this person not being able to do what he needed to be done. I wasn't really sure as to why does he seem so anxious, angry, and he was shouting at this person that he was trying to talk to, clearly giving him instructions, and he seemed like a senior person in terms of the place that he was working at. He seemed very charged for about 5 minutes, and on the call he was shouting at this person to get this work done. It's 9 o'clock on a Friday. And for context, like most corporate people don't work at that time in Friday. However, this person seemed to be addressing a person who's working somewhere. Turns out that this man works as a facility provider, facility manager at a hospital, a big hospital. Makes me think about how some jobs are different from others. Some jobs have a bigger repercussion if not done right. And even though inside the metro, it seemed that he's building up a lot of anxiety for people around him, because he's literally shouting on the phone. The week has ended, and he's shouting at this person to get his work done. But turns out he's a sweet. I actually said hi to him. I said like, "Hi, sir. I'm Naman. I want to introduce myself, and I actually want to know as to what do you do." So he smiled at me, and he was gentle after that. On the call, he was very strict with this junior person that he was speaking to. He kept telling him to follow the instructions and do the work, follow the instructions and do the work. And while I was talking to him, he was quite sweet. He smiled at me and he told me that he works as a facility manager. He makes sure that the quality of the hospital remains. And then he even takes care of the hygiene of the building. So, salute to all the people who are out there getting work done while everybody else is enjoying the relatively lesser work that comes around for corporate people. Such as me, I work jobs. And in my profession, it's a little bit of a lull period at this point in time, which is nice. Like, a little downtime where you can connect with your family, your friends, with yourself as well. I've been going on walks. I've been enjoying the winter season. It's quite cold here. And yes, this was something quite interesting that happened to me. So I thought I'd start the podcast with this. Merry Christmas to all my listeners. I'd like to start today's podcast by talking a little bit about what Christmas is. It's very basic information. I would also, after this, when I say it's basic information, it's about the history of Christmas, in a sense, where did this come from? Where did Santa Claus come from? There's a very interesting article in the newspaper by Rishika Singh in the Indian Express, which talks about the origins of Santa Claus and some other Nordic spirits that are involved in Christmas. So this is a very interesting article. There's another topic that I would like to talk about in this podcast is about Brij Bhushan Singh, who was the former president of the Wrestling Federation of India. This is a story that some of my listeners might already know about, that there is a little bit of history there. Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, who is an MP from Brij of Bharatiya Janata Party, member of parliament. This person has been accused of sexually harassing has been accused by 6 women wrestlers of sexually harassing them. There is an active case that is registered with the Delhi police. These are allegations that have been made on him, and by 6 very credible wrestlers of that have represented India on different forums. There is a lot to this. It's a story that I've been hearing about for the longest time, because a few months back the wrestlers were on the streets of Delhi asking for justice, asking for Mr. Brij Bhushan to step down from the presidentship of WFI. Least that one could do was that he be taken out of wrestling. Wrestling is a sport that I'm personally very interested in learning as well. Wrestlers are some of the most strong-willed people. They're very mentally strong. Their bodies are burnt into becoming the strongest version of themselves. India has had a very relatively better history in terms of winning medals at different positions, like say the Olympics or Commonwealth Games. Bajrang Punia kept his Bharat Ratna outside on the street when the recent presidential elections for the WFI were declared, where Sanjay Singh, who is an aide of Mr. Brij Bhushan, became the president. There were some very disturbing images that came out of the celebration for that presidentship winning. The case has been updated and Sanjay Singh is no longer the president anymore after the elections which were held. It seemed like Brij Bhushan would still be running the show. He was running WFI from his home in New Delhi. He has been given a bungalow. Brij Bhushan Singh is an extremely influential MP for Bharatiya Janata Party and is an important figure in the party. The reason that he was even given the presidentship beyond his tenure also had to do with the fact that he's an influential person who wins seats, which at the end of the day makes a political party relevant, especially someone like the Bharatiya Janata Party. Now Sanjay Singh, who is an aide of Brij Bhushan, has been removed. However, after such allegations being raised against a person like that, still their presence in this entire federation just talks about the situation and how are we managing sports in this country. Ours is a country where sports is kind of seen as either a 0 or a 100. Like you're either a sports person or you're a fat person. Like there is no center. Sports is something that we need to develop in the younger people in this country and also the older people in this country, so that the older people can motivate the younger people. Sports as a culture has not, in my opinion, especially in the civilian areas, it's not something that I see a lot of infrastructure for, awareness for. People who take the decision to become sports people, I have nothing but respect for them to show up and want to win for themselves, for their countries, to have a better future. Why would we want to make it difficult for them? Why would we want to have predators at the top positions that make it difficult for them? If sexual favors allegedly are not exchanged, they are not given an opportunity. I choose to talk about this topic because as a citizen, it shakes my conscience when I think that there can be times where women speak out against a person and that person still enjoys a lot of power because he happens to be an influential MP, which is important to get numbers for, to win elections. It's a democratic reality that we live in. When we think of democracy, we would want people who represent us well. These should be people who interact with the public in a good manner, in a matter of respect, in a matter of giving them the opportunities that they deserve and trying their best to give them the opportunities. However, when there are people who are strong enough to be let off by their acts, they happen to be in a position of power. The president of the Wrestling Federation of India would definitely be a person who can make or break someone's career. Mr. Brij Bhushan Singh, who is an MP from the Bharatiya Janata Party, happened to be a very powerful person. I do not know the details of the case in terms of the investigations that are going on at this point. The Delhi police has 2 FIRs. One of them has been quashed and one is active, which has 6 people which includes Sakshi Malik as well, who also retired from wrestling because Mr. Sanjay Singh was appointed as the president. The reason I have even gone on a little monologue about this story is because it breaks my heart a little bit to see the condition of sports in this country and the amount of it is such a difficult decision to even pursue sports in India. It is definitely a difficult position because there is not much infrastructure and there are so many factors that make it difficult for you in this country. Nutrition is a big part of that. just the amount of income, like the average income of like people in this country is quite low. And then there are obstacles that can easily be avoided, especially if our institutions are with people who actually care about athletes. These bodies, at least in my opinion, should be run by athletes. Like, just give it to people who are actually genuinely passionate about running federations of bodies, so that they can make proactive decisions. The committees can sit on time, do the work for the athletes, so that we have better athletes in this country, and more younger people have the confidence to come out and actually practice sports, and know that the institutions are there to help them and not to harass them. Harassments have happened in the past, and they might even continue to happen in the future. However, whatever comes out into the public eye should definitely be looked into, and this is a story that I would want to talk a little bit about. This would have to do with understanding who Mr. Brij Bhushan is, and what I really feel about this. It's more of an opinionated thought that I would want to like share with my listeners. And obviously it's a case that is under which is being investigated at this point. There has been an FIR that has been filed, and these things are in court right now, being investigated and being probed by the agencies. However, just seeing the visuals of your harasser, if these allegations are true, seeing the visuals of your harasser getting away with these things and actually then getting that position back, I feel that's heartbreaking. We even think about why are we not letting, like when we ask people who have faced harassment to come out into the public and actually speak up about these things. This is the kind of treatment that we give to the women of our country. This is the kind of treatment that a lot of women face across the world. As a man, I would be mansplaining if I say what it actually feels like to be sexually harassed by somebody, and then seeing them on TV get away with it. They happen to be a powerful person. Mr. Brij Bhushan Sharan happens to be a powerful person. Their aides seem to be powerful. His influence has brought him to the position that he is in as the ex-president of the Wrestling Federation of India. The amount of years that he was the president, there have been precedents where just the testimony of these women seem like cases where it should have been the case that this person is not relevant in wrestling anymore. At least if you're not putting somebody behind bars because you don't have enough information, if 6 prominent wrestlers have come out against this person, there should have been no case. If there is some person listening to this, in terms of not this audio recording, but if somebody heard this case, say the Prime Minister of the country heard this case and felt that if women's security, even the perception of that, like we all saw what happened in Manipur, that is again one of those cases that brought the conscience of the country to a standstill in terms of realizing what kind of what violence can do. Violence can happen in a mob, violence can happen inside a room as well. And just this case kind of shook me a little bit, and it's just something that I wonder what other people think about. Like, what are men thinking, what are women thinking about this, what are other sports people thinking about this? If you come out against your harasser and not see any action taken against him, on the contrary, you see them boasting about their clout, how would you feel? How would I feel? What if it was my sister? What if it was somebody that I know that was sexually harassed by somebody, but to no avail because this person is powerful? This is a case of not just wrestling, but this is a case where people know of cases in different domains where people in positions of power have abused their power to get sexual favors, to coerce women, to coerce juniors, male and female, into positions that they would not want to be in. They would have to compromise their character, compromise their morality, be silent about it. There have been so many cases, like even recently I've read some very disturbing crimes that come in the newspaper, and they've been coming not just now, they've been coming for years. However, as a young adult, when you read this in a society that's around you, say there was a case that's been filed against 3 cops where they abducted a minor, and the minor was allegedly raped for an entire year. She was raped for an entire year because they told her that they would frame her brother in a case if that did not happen. These were men in position of power who did this. It takes years for cases to get solved in this country. When I say this, I'm sure, and whoever's listening, I hope nobody listening has had experience of legal slowness, like just the lethargy in the legality and coming to a point where your case can be closed. That's something that takes many years in this country. There has been a problem of appointment of judges. There's been a problem of giving even POSCO cases, which are against crimes against children. There was a news story talking about how these cases are they are by authority fast tracked. However, that doesn't happen a lot as well. Heinous crimes are also not looked out after, and convictions are not laid out after due deliberation. Obviously, nobody innocent should be put behind bars or prosecuted for their actions. However, sometimes there are cases where your gut can tell you better. This has been a long conversation, and this actually could be just what I was wanting to speak about this case in terms of how much it affects me. And I think people should have a little bit of an awareness about what this is, and this could happen to anyone in the coming future as well. If somebody that you know would want to pursue sports, and the federation head of that sport, it could be badminton, wrestling, steeplechase, track and field, any of these things, turns out to be a sexually a sexual harasser, I think that would be such a big determinant of pursuing that sport further, and they would have to quench their passion and get into something that they don't want to do. It's a sad situation. It's a case that I would want to read more about and get an understanding about why is it that we do this to ourselves as a society. Why do we have to have people run federations where they are exploiting it, where they're exploiting the people who are directly affected by the decisions that they make? And that's something that we all need to think about as a society, especially people in the positions of power, higher than the positions that are being, the people who are exercising their powers in a bad way. If there are vigilance commissions, if there are anti-corruption bodies, if there's the police, if there are authorities that look out for these things, why is it that a person of power is given more leeway, and people who don't have the power are definitely not in a good position to get the justice that they require? It took wrestlers to come to the streets of Delhi and protest for months for the person to at least be put down from the presidentship of the federation, only to see his aide become the president after the elections were held 2 days back. And these guys go out for a party, like flexing their power. A little bit of morality in public office would be nice to see as a citizen. Not everybody practices or even pursues politics. We expect our politicians to work for us. We expect our politicians to have some form of character and dignity where they are not flexing their power, instead working with the people. But these are idealistic thoughts that I have as a person, and I hold them with a lot of courage and respect. What are your thoughts on this, my listeners? I was going to go on a segment about this through any of the newspapers that are out there, or read about it. However, I feel honest and genuine thoughts about something like this are more important than just reading out facts. It's that's because your honest thoughts come from a place of conscience, and if they're moving and being shattered because of what you feel about it, that's more valuable than what is actually the case. But the wrestler community is a lot of times from Haryana. Haryana is a state which has bred some amazing wrestlers, like because of the akhada culture that there is. Mr. Brij Bhushan was also a practitioner of the akhada actually. There is a lot of wrestlers from Haryana. Jats. Next year there are the elections in Haryana. BJP has taken some cognizance of this, and removed Mr. Sanjay Singh from the presidentship of WFI to kind of tell the judge that, hey, we are not supporters of molesters of women of your community. It takes an election to do something that should have been done in the first thing, like in the first place. Like, even if this person is extremely influential, they could be just made to sit down made to sit down and told that, hey, this is not right. But who does this? Nobody actually, because authority is decentralized when it comes to autocracy. What I mean by that is when there is a little bit of these are just my thoughts. I'm not reading this out of anywhere. I feel sometimes authority can lead to autocracy and there is no responsibility for that. This person gets away with a lot of crime. Whoever gets away with a lot of crime knows that they can get away with it. Somebody who is committing crime with some form of an understanding that they're doing something wrong should have some form of like understanding that maybe they will not be prosecuted for something this wrong because they're in a position of power, they're in a position of leverage for an organization which is led by individuals, however still an organization. So getting into a little bit of a lighter note for the podcast, I would like to talk about the history of Christmas. Yes, it's been heavy to even just speaking for about 10 minutes about this case of Mr. Brij Bhushan and how he allegedly sexually harassed wrestlers and was put back into the presidentship. I would want to, it being the Christmas day, I would want to read a little bit about Christmas and its history. This is a very interesting article written by Rishika Singh in the Indian Express. It says, the many origins of Santa Claus, from Christian saints to the evil Nordic spirits. Ooh, there are some evil Nordic spirits. Like, I've always been curious about Norway. It just seems like a place, no way that I would be living there. No way, Norway. Because 6 months of darkness and 6 months of something like that. Like, there is something behind the geography of this. I'm sure my listeners who have more knowledge, please do share that with me. However, Norway seems like an interesting place. Currently it's extremely grey and dark. I was seeing some reels on Instagram. However, something to do with Santa Claus and the evil Nordic spirits. Quite interesting. Let's get into this. For millions of people worldwide, giving and receiving gifts form an important part of Christmas celebrations. This is fun, like little small gifts. I was given some chocolates. I was really happy to receive them. I have gotten some gifts as well for my loved ones, and I would love to talk more about that. However, it's true that receiving and giving gifts is an important part of Christmas. Presents are bought for children and numerous exchanges organized among friends and office colleagues. These gifts are often given out under the name of Santa Claus. Santa Claus! Did you guys believe in Santa Claus? I do not think so. Wasn't much big of a factor. I mean, I have grown up in India, and India is not really like a Christian-dominated country. However, I've seen Santa Claus being celebrated, and in the markets, in the streets, it becomes bright and red. As a society, that's quite interesting because we like to celebrate festivals from different religions. How did this grandfatherly figure come to be linked with Christmas and with the tradition of gifting? Here, we take a look at the legends, the forces of economics and politics that shaped and popularized Santa Claus. Saint Nicholas, Nuttupuki, the precursors. There's a really interesting word that they are going to explain further, which is Nuttipuki. It's spelled as NWTTIPUKKI. It sounds like a very South Indian name to me, but it's not, which is the interesting part. Saint Nicholas, Nuttipuki, the precursors. These were the precursors. The popular image of Santa Claus is based on traditions associated with Saint Nicholas, a 4th century Christian saint. 4th century, okay. He was seen as a patron saint of children. Saint Nicholas was seen as a patron saint of children. Popularly, Nicholas was believed to be the bishop of small Roman town of Myra, present-day Turkey. Myra was present-day Turkey. So, he was seen as a patron saint of children. Popularly, Nicholas was believed to be the bishop of the small Roman town of Myra in the 4th century. The saint was well known among the Dutch, who called him Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas. So Santa Claus sounds a lot like this. So the Dutch used to call them Sinterklaas, Sinterklaas. When the Dutch came to colonize the region around present-day New York, USA, in the 17th century, they brought in their unique traditions, including Sinterklaas. Finland also lays claims to the mythology of Santa Claus. In the Middle Ages, the Finns celebrated Yule, a pagan midwinter festival. Paganism refers to the religious and spiritual beliefs which prevailed before the coming of the major modern religions. Quote, on Saint Knut's Day, 13th January, it's spelled as Knuts. I wonder if it's pronounced like that. On Saint Knut's Day, the day many Nordic countries mark the end of the holiday season, Nuttupukki. Okay, so Nuttupukki is it's the mark of the end of the holiday season. Interesting. Men dressed in fur jackets, birch bark masks and horns would go door to door to demand gifts and scrounge for leftover food. While these were evil spirits, the 1800s saw the stories of Saint Nicholas make their way here. His image blended with the pre-existing tradition of the mass Nuttupukki to create Joulupukki. This sounds so like a Tamil, like a South Indian thing. Joulupukki. Translating to Yule goat. Joulupukki, which is spelled as Joulupukki. Joulupukki handed out gifts instead of demanding them. This figure was known to wear red robes and deliver gifts, as modern day Santa as we know it. Interestingly, the UK also had a pre-existing figure called Father Christmas. The University of York notes in an article that, quite unlike Santa, he, quote, presided over festival parties, feasts and drinking. Christmas was focused more on entertainment for adults rather than a time for children. This changed with the Victorian period in the 19th century, which was accompanied by societal changes such as greater focus on family life. It was this sentiment that could have given rise to a more familiar, kinder figure aimed at children. Santa, the giver of gifts in more modern times. Paul Ringel, an associate professor of history, wrote in The Atlantic in 2015 that Christmas gift giving emerged through a mix of different trends. The emergence of a toy industry in the early 1800s, increasing commercialization, and the increasing population of New York. There seemed to be a concern among the elite sections of society over the celebrations that the working class would engage in and the holidays that they would demand from their bosses. In a newly congested urban environment, though, aristocrats worried that such celebrations might become vehicles for protests when employers refused to give workers time off during the holidays, or when a longer winter or unemployment loomed for seasonal laborers. Gift giving was therefore the product of overlapping interests between elites who wanted to move raucous celebrations out of the streets and into homes, and families who simultaneously wanted to keep their children safe at home and expose them in limited amounts to commercial entertainment. Stay at home is what the elites want. Okay. The History Channel further notes that in 1881, the History Channel further notes that in 1881, political cartoonist Thomas Nast drew on an 1823 poem from Clement Clarke Moore called A Visit from St. Nicholas. The poem featured lines with imagery such as miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. And the beard on his chin was white as snow, and bundles of toy he had flung on his back. This poem greatly influenced how we see Santa today, after Nast's cartoon put his description to paper. Interesting. It's Christmas. Merry Christmas, listeners. There's a lot to celebrate. There is a lot to think about. I would like to put a cap on today's podcast. The first segment of the podcast was a little bit of a rant. I was going to read a little bit about the case. However, I felt my honest thoughts mean more at this point. And if there is a conclusive article that I get across where they give a background about this entire case and its current updates, I would definitely bring that up as well. because I feel it's important to talk about difficult things. It's important to talk about things that genuinely affect you. And I would love to know your thoughts about this as well. What do you think should be the case for sports bodies? Who should be leading them? It should, according to me at least, it should be passionate people who are honest, who are also respectful, and would definitely not come from a position of power but from a position of passion. And when it comes to Christmas, I hope everyone's had a time where they're able to be in tune with themselves and be in tune with their environments. That's something that's very important. A lot of times there's a pressure to go out, do things, spend a lot of money that you don't have to impress people that you don't need to impress. In that entire cycle, it can be difficult and can be mentally challenging for people to actually have fun, to relax, and to enjoy the holidays. As the aristocrats of the articles that we were reading about, that they were concerned that if workers are not given the time to chill, then they would become angsty and they would protest during not being given time during peak winters and holidays. However, I hope you guys got time with your family and taken good care of yourself. If you're going through something, say something such as a surgery or a mental health issue, or it could be a lot of a disarray in your room, like how's your room, man? Like that's a question that I ask myself a lot. Like I hope my room's doing okay. I do try and take care of my clothes. However, sometimes it can become a little disorganized. So take care of yourself, take care of your family. Go for a run if you can, if the air around you is nice. Even if it isn't, maybe you can try a Wim Hof session, something like that. Wim Hof is great. I think that's been a game changer. However, that's a story for another podcast. I hope you guys liked the content of today's episode. It was a little different from our regular stuff, from my regular stuff. I would be very much interested in bringing you different types of stories which are of interest to you. And if you like the podcast, a great way to support it would be to drop a like on the YouTube channel and even share the video with anyone that you think might be interested in listening. And the Spotify episode will also be available on It would be available on Spotify. So tune into Spotify, go there, find me, find the NancoVerse podcast. If you have any guest suggestions, you can DM me on Instagram. You can find me there as NancoVerse, and we can get a conversation going. I hope everyone stays alive, stays happy, live well, man. Take care of the people around you. Take care of yourself. Jai Hind.